Welcome in everyone, and thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET HOOPS. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. This is going to be kind of a two-prong, a dueling episode. We're going to talk recruiting at first. We've brought a lot of intel, sort of some breadcrumbs on several of Arkansas's top priority targets, 5 stars in the class of 2026. We know there's unfinished business there. Calipari, is looking toward adding more players to a class that's only two deep so far when you look at the early period. So we've gone through, intel, spanning several segments that we've done really since the early period wrapped up. That was a week-long signing period in November. So we've kind of given you, intel as we've gone along since then about where things stand with players we know we're going to have to wait until the spring on. So I'm just going to do a quick recap on some of that intel and what the scene looks like now. As I haven't done this in a while, but today we're going to go back to the scale of 1 to 10 confidence level of the John Calipari, his ability, or what I perceive his chances are to close on these players. This is a little bit different, the scale of 1 to 10, and I've explained this before, than saying that whatever that number is means that I think Arkansas is necessarily in the lead for a player. It's more about the confidence level based on the information I have, based on the details with each of these players as it relates to Arkansas standing in that recruitment. So it's more of a confidence level in Calipari figuring out a way to finish the race for these players in first place, cross that finish line first, get commitments, and so there is a ways to go again with the spring period, but it is closer than it obviously has been since we've been since we turned the page to the new year. Because some of the commitments could be announced prior to the actual signing, and that would happen in April. So, for example, a Jordan Smith Jr. may make a decision in February or March. That's according to his dad. That's just one example of how, even though you have a longer wait till they can make it official, you might learn sooner rather than later. And so February's just next month. Let's just throw that out there. If you were to, get a commitment that soon, whether it's Arkansas or somebody else, some teams are going to find out about what players' intentions are even before they can officially sign them. And then the other part we're going to have today, once we wrap up and get through some where I think Arkansas stands on, really, I'm going to look at the three main targets that Arkansas, still has on the big board, and these are players that remain uncommitted. Moving into again as we get uh, look ahead to the spring period. But in addition to the recruiting part of this, I'm also going to do a preview of Arkansas, South Carolina. The Razorbacks will be back home at Bud Walton Arena on Wednesday. Wednesday night, SEC Network, 8 p.m., a late start, 8 p.m. Central Time. South Carolina, a team that comes in with not as good of a record, obviously, as Arkansas, a team that's not been ranked, but nonetheless, a formidable opponent. I think most SEC teams are. I don't think you have a night off whether you're on the road or at home. Auburn probably felt like it had kind of a a situation where it was coasting against Arkansas, but no one would have thought that going into it. And that's why we don't know what to expect, especially with an Arkansas defense that's been really struggling lately. So we're going to talk about that matchup and how I see that one. I'll make a score prediction at the end of the show when we get to the preview part. But let's start with recruiting first off. And I mentioned that this is where we would begin tonight. And so let's take a look at the players on the board here. I thought I had this. There they are. There they are. Okay, Jordan Smith Jr., I mentioned his name. Mika Murnin, who we see pictured here. And then Brandon McCoy Jr. Now, all these players we know have took official visits, excuse me, to Arkansas. Murnin way back in September of 2024. The other two that you see there, Jordan Smith Jr. and Brandon McCoy Jr., took their official visits to Arkansas in September of 2025. Brandon McCoy Jr., the first of the two to visit in September. He visited in early September. I believe it was the first weekend. Jordan Smith Jr. a bit later in the month, but all three have had official visits to Arkansas. Jordan Smith Jr. has been flirting with the idea of coming back to Arkansas for an unofficial visit to attend a game. So far as we know, that has not been set in stone, or at least it's not announced if it is set in stone. And I continue to endeavor learning that return visit, if it's going to happen, as I talk to Jordan Smith Jr.'s dad on a regular basis. But the intel, let's just start with Jordan Smith Jr. The intel there is as we've said for a while, Calipari declined to make a final escalating offer of NIL to Baba Aladdin back in the early period, telling people close to him, and these are sources that got back to me, uh, that he intended to put more money in the NIL pile and push that pile toward Jordan Smith Jr., who is the number one player on Arkansas's big board and the number one prospect outside of J.J. Andrews, the 5-star top 10 rated player out of Little Rock, who we know is already committed and signed in the early period, was sort of in his own realm in terms of being a legacy, being an in-state kid. But Jordan Smith Jr., the top priority outside of that. So Calipari moving away from an opportunity to maybe up the ante to win the services of Bob Aladdin. He wanted to focus that money on Jordan Smith Jr. Other intel coming through from various sources. One that I told you in Virginia has been a coach at multiple levels. So boots on the ground in the area. We know Jordan Smith Jr. That's where he's from. That's where he plays his high school basketball, Virginia. But the source saying that Arkansas is in second place to nobody in this recruiting battle, saying Arkansas is neck and neck. Duke and Georgetown are the other perceived leaders in his final six teams. And so that was more intel that I brought you at a different time. Then later, an NBA source saying that in terms of Jordan Smith Jr.'s family, his dad and his camp, having Calipari in a class of his own is not only a coach that gets players at the next level, especially backcourt players, but in terms of development, exposure, how his players thrive relative to what other coaches have done to put players in the league. More and more of Calipari's players thrive once they get to the NBA. So all these things, it's we know Calipari. When you look at the track record, he doesn't really have a peer there. Duke's awfully close. The combination of Krzyzewski and now John Shire. But that Jordan Smith Jr.'s camp, they not only like Cal, but they have him in his. They really see him as better than anyone else on the finals list in terms of, again, the NBA part of it, delivering players and all the other things that really look good on Calipari's resume in terms of what his former players do. And so that was more the intel that we brought you. Then we also had a source tell us that Calipari is prepared to, if he hasn't already, is prepared to up the NIL for Jordan Smith Jr. to the level it takes to win the recruitment, which would include being the highest NIL offer to date that Arkansas's made for any player, whether that's previous high school recruiting classes, the portal, and retention. So we brought you that information. More recently, we told you that we have a source telling us now that Calipari, he's always had a plan to try to get both Jordan Smith Jr. and Brandon McCoy Jr. And at one point, Caleb Holt, remember Caleb Holt went on the record in an interview stating that Calipari was talking to him about having all three of them. Well, Holt doesn't have Arkansas on his Final Five list. He visited Arkansas as well. But the more recent intel was a source telling me that this is coming from Calipari, that he, beyond having a plan in the recruitment to get both and not just one or the other, he thinks he has a viable path. And it was based on the strength of Arkansas's NIL offers to the players. That's Buckley, by the way, my assistant. He's lately been chiming in a lot. He's got the Zooms right now, running around furniture down here in the man cave. But that he sees a viable path to getting both of these players, kind of a three-pronged position of strength, and the way Calipari sees it. That's the NIL offers to both players. I guess the flexibility to increase those, certainly for Jordan Smith Jr., because that's what one source had told me. His own track record of developing guards, but the sense is not only what we've told you about Jordan Smith camp and how smitten they are, that camp with Arkansas, with Calipari and his uh, success getting players in the NBA. But apparently that's the case with Brandon McCoy Jr. too, because Calipari thinks that is a strength in this recruitment and maybe gives him an advantage. You think, well, isn't that kind of obvious? Well, Calipari thinks that's baked into whatever feedback he's getting. He feels good that he can get both and not just one. And the third part of that, when I brought you the intel, was as far as the way Calipari sees it, is his specific visions for each player. He probably feels like he has more cachet, I'm told, because of the success he's having in this current season with two guards that are likely on a path to be first round draft picks. Obviously, Darius Acuff Jr. and Malik Thomas. So it's the recency of success since he's made the change to Arkansas. Also, backcourt players, and that the two players he's being able to show right now that the two players, one didn't take away from the other in terms of being on a path to realizing their dreams of being one and done. So Calipari feels he's got a lot of momentum and he sees a viable path to convince both. Now, I was on the record and I said this when I brought that intel that even though he may see it that way, I still think at the end of the day, he's likely going to get one of them. I think it's less likely that he gets both, but I do think it'll be one or the other. I think that's, so that's how I see that right now. So we'll see where it goes. But he has a level of confidence right now. Remember, there's still a waiting game to some degree, and things can change in recruiting. What he feels like it is going well now may be different in a week. It may be different earlier today, and I just don't know it yet. I mean, so we track these things, we come back and we fill you in. The intel we've given you on Mika Miernan for a while, we've got an international source that says if he sees any real daylight that the NBA draft will work out for him, he's going into the draft. But Mirrodin's been on the record stating he's the 1 year of pro ball in Europe. He's done with that after this year and he intends to play college basketball. Well, that's probably his best option in terms of making himself a viable first round pick, not in the next draft, but 2 drafts away. Finish up your pro season just like high school seniors are doing anyway, which is what he would have been, class of 2026, a high school senior, had he come back to the States and played a senior year of high school. Instead, he's playing pro ball overseas. Either way, he's been on the record saying that he wants to play basketball after this year abroad back in Europe, where he's from Finland, playing pro basketball. But he's also mentioned that he's recently in an interview that Arkansas is one of the teams that he's talked to recently. Well, Arkansas's coaching staff reminds me every time I ask about it and check in, they're still prioritizing Mika Miernan. They're in it to win it, as they say, and that they maintain contact. And so Miernan said lines up with the intel I've given. But again, I had another source who's a college basketball analyst, also kind of double dips, covers recruiting, and we brought this intel to you a while back that Arkansas is in great shape in Calipari. This source believes in the end will win Mika Miernan. He had a top 6 list of schools, and Arkansas's been on that list. And again, Arkansas maintains the kind of recruiting contact that you would expect. So so going back through and just kind of reliving some of the intel that we've given you incrementally along the way again really since the end of that week-long early signing period when Arkansas, these players are obviously still on the board, still out there. You're waiting till the spring. With Mirren, you could even be waiting the summer. Okay, so I've just gone back through all the intel again. So now today, we don't really have anything new to bring you today. I'm working on some stuff in the next 24 to 48 hours. I'll probably have another segment where I bring you some intel. I've just got to, dot a couple of I's and cross a couple of T's and try to get some extra confirmation on a couple of things I've gotten. But today, at least, we're going to go through a confidence level with these players and take a look at where I'm at with that in terms of Calipari, my belief that Calipari can get this pushed over the finish line and win the race for these guys. And so it's positive for each one of them. It's a scale of 1 to 10, 5 being the midway point, to sort of being on the fence of, something less than 5. The confidence level is not great. If it's higher than 5, it's a little better than just middle of the road. And we're just a little bit better here on all 3 of them. When we look at it from that standpoint. So here it is. I've got it up on the screen. Taking a look at Calipari closing on the class of 2026 high school targets. Scale of 1 to 10. Jordan Smith Jr. I've got it right now as a 6. Remember, Duke. Most voices, most folks that weigh in on it from a national recruiting standpoint, the analysts still think Duke's the team to beat. There's a bunch of reasons why that looks like it could go that way, but there are also some reasons, and we've gone through it. The Rippy commitment, lead guard, recent commitment to Duke, multiple 5 stars already in the stable from this class for Duke. How many basketballs do you have to pass around to make everybody happy? And Jordan Smith Jr. again keeping an eye on Arkansas's backcourt, and 2 of the 3 players in that backcourt likely going to be first round draft picks. And a guy like DJ Wagner, even if he returns, is not going to get in the way of any potential draft pick because he hasn't so far. playing 3 years now for Calipari and watching other players in the backcourt move on to not only first round draft pick status, but lottery pick status. Boogie Fland's an exception last year, but before he got hurt, he was playing at an all league level up to the point where he got injured, and so didn't play again until missed half the season effectively, and then made a few appearances in postseason. But either way, there are reasons to think Arkansas and Calipari in great shape with Jordan Smith Jr. We've gone over some of that intel. We reminded you of what that is today. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 6 here, which is pretty strong given that again like let's say that we learn that Jordan Smith Jr. has not only said his unofficial visit to Arkansas but takes it to come back and attend a game or whatever that looks like. That'll probably increase this score here and where I have it now. If that never sees the light of day, we might bump it down a little bit. Or other factors that come into play could raise the number or lower it. But right now, even though I'm not, headstrong bullish on Calipari, I'm better than middle of the road here. And so that's where things stand today. Is this the same thing as me saying Arkansas is in the lead? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying with all the advantages Calipari already has and some of the other stuff that looks like it could be favoring Arkansas, I'm better than middle of the road here in terms of Calipari figuring out a way to get this done. To get me to a point where I can say, okay, I think Arkansas is in the lead. I think he could be trending to maybe getting us there. That's why I'm bullish on it. Similar with Brandon McCoy Jr. Now you're saying, well, McPherson, you said you don't think he's likely to get both, one or the other. Well, you can be in a great position with both and then end up with only one, but I think he's still in a strong position with McCoy. We brought you the intel in addition to the stuff with Jordan Smith Jr. and how Calipari thinks about it. What we also know is there are a couple of other things. There's been talk that Jordan Smith Jr. and Brandon McCoy Jr. might want to play together at the college level. You hear that sometimes and it doesn't work out. Sometimes it does in terms of what players decide to do. It's not the first time that five stars have talked of playing together, and a lot of times they do, and a lot of times they ended up not doing that. But maybe there's something to that. The other thing is, and this was intel I brought you a while back, and I forgot to mention it when I was running back through all of it. Remember, I had a source that said from a high major coaching staff that not only had they backed away or they were no longer in the mix in the Brandon McCoy Jr. sweepstakes, but one of the other teams, and I was later able to confirm it was a program that he actually did take an official visit to. This source of mine didn't want to tell me. He knew the answer, and he said, "Well, maybe he did visit, maybe he didn't, maybe he's considering a visit." That's what he said, but I was able to figure out on my own. Now, I went back to him and said, "I think this is what happened and who the school is." And this source said, "I'll acknowledge it if you won't share it or name it." So I won't do that today, but I will say this: that there is a school that's no longer in the running, one of the official visits that he took. And as far as I know, there's no public knowledge of that. I've not seen it reported anywhere. All right. So for a variety of reasons, again, just similar to Jordan Smith Jr., I'm a little bullish here on Calipari getting this done. I'm better than middle of the road. I've got Mika Mirnet at a 5.5. I've got, like I said, I've got a source that thinks Calipari is going to get him in the end. But Mirnet has been flip flop so much about reclassifying, didn't play spring and summer last year. Doesn't necessarily mean anything, but he stayed away from the states, right? He didn't play spring and summer. He didn't come back for another high school season. He opted the pro route again. I've got an international source that thinks at the end of the day, if he can figure out a way to get into this next draft, he's going to do that. So I think there's more things pulling at him that make me a little less certain. But I'm still on a positive side here because Arkansas continues to prioritize Murnin. And again, I've got one source that thinks at the end Calipari's going to get this done with him. And the other thing I think is, we were talking so much about, and what I said was that Calipari, you know, with the success he's had with Malik Thomas, with Darius Jacob Jr., and how that looks. Well, how about selling Mika Mirnan on the job that Calipari's done to get Trevor Brazil to play his best basketball? This is a perfect fit in terms of positional value to slide right in. I mean, Brazil's college eligibility is out. It'll really look good for Arkansas if somehow Brazil has some draft grades and looks like he might be a draftable. When you start looking at the potential for him to go in the NBA draft. That remains to be seen, but he is playing his best basketball, and Miernan could slide right in as that 4-5 combo, more of a stretch four, more of that position, but can help at the five and be be your five in smaller ball lineups, or even with another big. I think his versatility protecting the rim, he's got the potential to be a strong rebounder. He's got all the soft skills, can shoot from three, better ball handler and shot creator in the mid range, and that kind of thing than Brazil is. But we've seen Brazil again progress, and there's a good selling point for Calipari. Nonetheless, I've got that at 5.5 for some of those other factors that I mentioned. All right, we're over 20 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET Hoops. I'm Kevin McPherson, your host. If you haven't done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. Turn the notifications on. Put comments down once the segment's been published. All of that stuff helps us out. We appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. But there's my update on the scale of 1 to 10. And remember, this does not include the potential for reclasses from 27 to 26. Calipari will be certainly involved. It's in his wheelhouse to go for that and encourage it. And we could see that, especially when we look at a frontliner like a Bene Akizi Jr. at Southeastern Prep, a top five, top 10 rated 5-star, 7-foot center. There's some other bigs in out, especially out on the West Coast, that are in that class, and we'll just see are any of those frontliners or other guards even. Calipari, I mean, if it's the right kind of talent, it's going to be something he's okay with, and so we're going to keep an eye on that. Other international players, and remember, I've said this as we finally do wrap up the recruiting part. If there's still a pathway for Calipari to get to five, I think he'll expand this class and go with five if he can get the right combination. I mean, you've already got two in J.J. Andrews and Abdu Torre. If he can get all three of these guys I've got listed up here on the board, he's going to get them and get to five that way. He's got more than one path to do it. If you look at again reclass potential and maybe some international players that Arkansas continues to look at. I know that Arkansas for a fact recruits international players, specific players that they've been working on, and there's been no green light to name them to this point, but I keep asking, and so there's that. All right, let's move on now, shall we? Um, Probably a good time to let me see if I can get to it here. Well, we just started right there. Let's man, I'm all over the map here, aren't I? Let's start off with this. Arkansas, I'm really kind of surprised. 15th ranked, coming into last week in the Associated Press Top 25 poll, and Arkansas had two road games, beat a really struggling Ole Miss program by 7 on the road. The defense was just atrocious, giving up 87 points. Arkansas's offense was good enough to get to 94 and win that game. Especially late in the game, the fourth quarter, Arkansas's defense just collapsed. And it was literally, both teams exchanging scores at both ends. And you expect that from Arkansas, an elite offense and one of the top teams in the country. Not really Ole Miss, not an elite offense at all, not a great defense, not a great team. And yet Arkansas had its struggles there. And then Arkansas gets blown out, gets just wiped away by an unranked Auburn team. We know Auburn's a pretty good team. Both of them came in with the top 15 rated offenses. Auburn's defense was rated even worse than Arkansas's, and yet Auburn, mopped the floor with the Hogs, 95-73. And I thought Arkansas might tumble to, you know, 20th or maybe even outside the top 20. It didn't work out that way, and so there was no need. I guess you'd say there's no knee jerk reaction. It looks like the pollsters really like Arkansas because Arkansas did take a tumble in net. Arkansas fell 7 spots from 25th, I believe, to 32nd. But at the same time, you see it up here on the screen here. I tweeted this out earlier. Arkansas, when the polls came out this morning, Arkansas fell, and this is Monday as I do this. Arkansas fell only 2 spots to 17th, so a little bit of a surprise there. The Hogs 2-1 in SEC play, 12-4 overall. You see that, so you can count that, I guess, as good news. Darius Acuff Jr., this is also interesting. We know he had, 26 points and 9 assists in that win over Ole Miss, 19 points, 1 assist, 3 turnovers against Auburn. But when you add it up, his average was 22.5 points and 5 assists in the 2 games. Arkansas gets a road split. That's that's not too shabby when you look at playing in the SEC. Certainly getting destroyed at Auburn on ESPN was a bad look, but nonetheless, Acuff, now 5 consecutive SEC Freshman of the Week after being named the SEC Freshman of the Week earlier today. 5 straight? That's never been done before until Acuff did it in the SEC. So he established I guess a record for consecutive Freshman of the Week honors, 5 in a row. I mean, this guy's basically locked up SEC Freshman of the Year, SEC Newcomer of the Year, potentially. Newcomer is going to account for some transfers, I guess, at their new stop. So I don't know that you could say he's sewn that up, but he probably will. And then he's in the race. It depends. Again, it's going to really a lot's going to have to do with how Arkansas finishes as a team. But he's in the conversation for SEC Player of the Year and some All American teams, not just freshman All American. So kudos to Darius Acuff Jr. On Tuesday, uh, uh, Tuesday morning, I believe, and I tweeted this earlier. Acuff is going to have a Zoom press conference with the media to discuss the fact that he's a 5 consecutive weeks SEC Freshman of the Week, with Arkansas having a home game against South Carolina a day later on Wednesday night. I'm sure this will also be on some level a bit of a preview for that game. So we'll see about that with Darius Acuff Jr. All right, let's start talking about this matchup against South Carolina. 10-6. Um, Again, this is a team that might surprise Arkansas in terms of some of the strengths of South Carolina and Arkansas have being so weak defensively right now. That I think it's important as we move through here and just kind of look at the tail of the tape. Whoop, wrong button. I'm having a really rough night tonight getting this right. My apologies. Um, I'm hitting all the wrong buttons as I go along here. Okay, here we go. This is sort of a tail of the tape preview. 17th ranked Arkansas again, fell only 2 spots in the AP poll. South Carolina is and this is an 8 p.m. Central Time tip on Wednesday at Bud Walton Arena. The SEC Network has got the coverage here. Again, Arkansas 12-4, 2-1 in the SEC. South Carolina 10-8 and or excuse me, 10-6 and 1-2 in the SEC. I am blind here with no glasses on. I'm trying to read. Arkansas with the Monday net rankings, so this might be different by the time you see this on Tuesday. 32nd net, South Carolina 90th. When you look at Ken Palm, Arkansas fell several spots. I think Arkansas was 23rd going to the Auburn game in the Ken Palm, down to 30, 13th offensively. So, really one of the top teams in the country offensively, but the defensive efficiency continues to drop. It was 61 going to the Auburn game. Now it's 73rd, but it was in the 50s before the Ole Miss game. So again, win or lose, Arkansas is just not getting the job done defensively. And you see that basically avalanche slide in defensive efficiency ratings as the season carries forward. Arkansas's defense has devolved. It's not like a bad defense that's kind of maintaining not being good. It's getting worse. It's actually not improving. It's getting worse. And so there may be a tipping point here where Calipari gets some things figured out. I don't know if he'll make tweaks. I don't know how it's going to happen. But you need that to happen because no matter how many quality teams you beat in the regular season and what that looks like, this is a recipe for not getting far in the NCAA tournament. Now we're a ways away. Arkansas can maybe right the ship, but I'm still trying to figure out how the Razorbacks can do that. We'll talk some possibilities here in a minute. But Arkansas again, 73rd defensive efficiency. South Carolina, 71st in KenPom, and they ranked 79th on both offense and defense. Michi Johnson, who's been back and forth, South Carolina and Ohio State, back again. He's been in college basketball forever. Leads 4 players in double figure scoring with nearly 14 points per game. They've got a couple of 6'8" forwards that average double figure scoring. Another, I think it's a freshman guard who's averaging just over 10 points per game. Miles Stute, who's a front line, another 6'8" forward that's a SEC journeyman. Spent some time at, started out, I think, at Vanderbilt. He's been at South Carolina a couple of years now, and he gives good production as well. But this is a good team. Despite maybe some perspective, some of these, analytics and where the rankings are, there's some good things and qualities about this South Carolina team. when you look at the, certain aspects of uh, things that Arkansas has weaknesses with. And so let's take a look at some of that here for South Carolina. Um, and I'm going to go through the keys. I've got three keys to Arkansas winning. But before I get delved specifically into that, South Carolina is a good free throw shooting team, over 78%. That's one of the best marks in college basketball. I think it's top 10, top five. It's a low turnover team, averaging just under, right around 9.5 per game. So Arkansas's part of what Arkansas tries to do is generate turnovers, get out in transition. This is a team that doesn't turn the ball over a lot. South Carolina is not a good 3-point shooting team, but they put out the Gamecocks put up nearly right around 27 triples per game attempts. So they do like to get that three ball up, and they make nearly nine, just under nine. So combined with the fact that South Carolina is a really good 3-point field goal defensive team, this is a situation where Arkansas, in my opinion, has got to get back to attacking the paint and letting the 3-point attempts come organically off those paint touches and kickouts and ball movement rather than what we saw at Auburn, where Arkansas took the bait of a packed-in defense and just started launching threes. And we know Arkansas has a propensity to start games shooting a lot of threes, and they kind of level it off, limit some of that stuff in the second half, and then against good teams, Arkansas shot fewer than it has in some of these other matchups. Against good teams early, Michigan State and Duke, Arkansas took way too many, and then they started figuring out less is more there. But you never know with this Razorbacks team. Again, against Auburn, they early it kind of put them in a bind. And even though they only took 4 3-point attempts in the second half, it was too little, too late, because Arkansas had already been blown out. So the combination of South Carolina's good 3-point defense and the fact that efficiency wise, don't let that fool you. This team makes nearly nine per game. And so we take a look at that. The South Carolina team is a really good 2-point field goal shooting team, averaging efficiency nearly 60%, just a hair under 60% on the season on 2-point field goals. So we know Arkansas struggles defending inside the 3-point line. They're up and down defending the three line. They've never been good anywhere recently. But the interior defense has been a big problem, and South Carolina not only flourishes with the high percentage on 2-point field goals, but if you foul this team, they're going to make you pay because they shoot 78% from the free throw line. So all these could be problematic. So when I look at some of Arkansas's weaknesses, I mean, this is not a strong South Carolina team when you talk about offensive rebounding. A lot of Arkansas's opponents have been, but because Arkansas has problems keeping teams off the offensive glass, we don't know that that won't be problematic. And so I look at this a few ways. I think Arkansas has to have my first key here. Arkansas has to have a relentless attacks on the paint in the rim offensively, from horn to horn. Arkansas needs to come out and impose its will. The strength of the team offensively is again in being in attack mode and let the 3-point shooting you play inside out. And so I think Arkansas that's got to be focus number one, especially the way Arkansas started against Auburn, shooting a ton of threes. Who knows what Arkansas will do? And they're going to be left open. Teams want Arkansas to want to get bailed out and have Arkansas take those threes and take their chances. Arkansas is a really good team from three when you look at it percentage wise, but it's a little bit of fool's gold because Arkansas is actually better when it limits the attempts. And we'll see where the percentages go, but they've got to make a focus on getting to the paint because even if you don't score close in the basket, around the basket, your chances of getting fouled and going and shooting free throws are much better. And so Arkansas needs to see it from that standpoint and approach it that way. Okay, so attack, attack, attack. That's what I think Arkansas's got to do from the outset to the end. And then I think that helps you have a chance of winning at the free throw line, even if the other team, and Arkansas has been good at the foul line too. South Carolina is even better percentage wise. So you want to run up the margin if you can on free throw attempts. Gives you a chance to, make more free throws. I think Arkansas needs to have its best interior defensive performance to date in SEC play. It just hasn't been there. If you go back to well, first of all, Ole Miss and Auburn, you combine those games, they average the teams together. The point totals, Arkansas's opponents last week averaged 91 points per game. You go to the Tennessee game, it's a little bit of a misleading final score. Arkansas won by 11. Tennessee only scored 75, but Tennessee shot 12 of 23 at the foul line, 52%. It was a team shooting just a hair under 70. So really, if you think about it, if it's even close to its percentage, that's an 80-point scoring night or better for Tennessee. And so let's see if Arkansas can actually hold a team down in the 70s. Again, there's some positives for this South Carolina team offensively. Can Arkansas have its best interior defensive performance, getting stops and not fouling? I think those two things hand in hand and showing more physicality somehow. Against Tennessee, Arkansas didn't really win the physical battle, but Arkansas blocked 10 shots and altered many more. And that's what helped the Razorbacks. And then winning the turnover battle and transition battle in the second half is those things kind of went hand in hand. So the defense, there were times that the defense played well against Tennessee. At the end of the day, again, Tennessee's missed free throws kept it from having a high scoring game. Shot nearly 50% from the field, outshot Arkansas efficiency wise, both inside the arc and outside. That was Tennessee and Arkansas in a win there. So can Arkansas have its best interior defensive performance to date? Because this is a good South Carolina team the closer it gets to the basket. So that it's a bit of a strength against weakness there. Can Arkansas make it a strength at least in this game and start to turn the corner defensively? Can Arkansas change who it is defensively? I don't know how much zone Arkansas is willing to play. If they're willing to mix some of that in, or is Arkansas willing to disguise its man-to-man offense to look a little bit like matchup zone and just pack things in a little bit, especially against a team that doesn't shoot well from three, takes a lot, and go from there. I mean, can you change who you are? You got it. Arkansas needs to change who it is, whether that's schematically or how you motivate guys or what tweaks do you make to the lineup. One thing we know, Carter Knox, one of Arkansas's potential to be one of Arkansas's more perimeter physical players, left the game in the first half, playing only 7 minutes with a hip injury. We don't have an update on that. We'll see if we get one pregame. We don't know if he'll be available. His brother, by the way, Kobe Knox, is one of the players on South Carolina. So in theory, these two Knoxes could be playing against each other. Certainly, there'll be a Knox on each bench, whether Carter plays or not. But again, Arkansas needs all hands on deck, especially if it's shorthanded. We know Knox missed a game early in the year. Trevor Brazile missed a game early in the year. I think it was the you know the first two or three games of the season where those players sat out, and ever since then, Arkansas has been basically at full strength. So we'll see if Arkansas is down a man in Carter Knox. That could be also a key situation here as we look at it. So I think again, Arkansas. Let's see what kind of defensive performance, but I think they might need their best performance. Um, and I'm not going to say if they don't get it, they won't win, but I think it'd go a long way to not only winning this game, but then giving Arkansas some confidence going up against another offensive juggernaut back on the road against a ranked Georgia team on Saturday, 21st ranked. So I think Arkansas needs to have this kind of performance even if it may not truly need it to win. I still think it's a key. I know I'm kind of harping on it, repeating it. Arkansas's got to turn the corner somewhere. Why not Wednesday night on defense? And here I say dominate transition and win free throws. I know I kind of said that about free throws earlier. But turnovers again. This isn't a team that turns the ball over a lot. Arkansas doesn't need to lose the turnover battle. I don't know if it will win it or not. But somehow Arkansas's got to figure out a way to get out and run. And so, that's something that Arkansas has struggled with at times, even though it's really good when you look at it in totality on the season. Back at home, you got to figure out a way to get in transition and get some easy scores. And again, I think Arkansas should do that against most opponents. They got to figure out a way to do that here, I think. But again, the free throw battle, one team shoots better. Both of them are good free throw shooting teams. Arkansas has been kind of Jekyll and Hyde. Can Arkansas, if Arkansas does point number one, the first key, and attacks the paint, it increases the volume of free throw attempts. And then on defense, you got to have one of your better performances and limit fouling so that you don't let a 78% free throw shooting team get to the line and maybe figure out a path of beating you because they got to the foul line. All right, that's it. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNet Hoops. This was my recruiting slash preview for Arkansas, South Carolina. I'm going to give a score prediction before I say goodbye. I'm going to call it Arkansas 82, South Carolina 77, a 5-point cushion for the Razorbacks at home against South Carolina. You're going to say, McPherson, I think it's going to be bigger than that. I think Arkansas right now struggling. They're struggling so much on the defensive end, and though I think Arkansas will likely be better than in this game. I still think this could end up being a close game, and I'd have it as a close game right now. Again, 82-77, I'm going with the Razorbacks. And if the Arkansas does win this game, the Razorbacks move to 13-4, 3-1 in the SEC. How about having a winning league record going into Game 4? I mean, how many times has that happened? Not many. Since Arkansas has been in the SEC, certainly when we look at the track record in recent years. All right, until next time, thanks again for all of you who've been here with me, and we hope you're great in all your endeavors. We hope you have a great week. We hope you get to watch an Arkansas victory. Until next time, we'll see you soon.